Hello, good morning. It's great to be back on the Psalms. I thought I'd probably failed to make the cut because it's been a little while since I've done one of these. But anyway, Luke's wrote me back in again to share a little bit today from Psalm 81. So if you've got your Bibles, you might like to turn to that. Let me read it and then you can come back to it as we have a look at it together. It says this. It's a bit of an intro that says, for the director of music, according to Gittith of Asaph, which is probably some sort of code of what sort of music to use. I'm not sure it'd be rock music, but maybe, as you'll hear, it was certainly loud. But here's the psalm. Sing for joy to God our strength. Shout aloud to the God of Israel. Begin the music. Strike the tambourine. Play the melodious harp and lyre. Sound the ram's horn at the new moon, when the moon is full on the day of our feast. This is a decree for Israel, an ordinance for the God of Jacob. He established it as a statute for Joseph when he went out against Egypt, where I heard a language I didn't understand. He said, I removed the burden from their shoulders. Their hands were set free from the basket. In your distress you called and I rescued you. I answered you out of a thundercloud. I tested you at the waters of Meribah. Hear, O my people, and I will warn you. If you would but listen to me, O Israel, you shall have no foreign god among you. You shall not bow down to an alien god. I am the Lord your God, who brought you up out of Egypt. Open wide your mouth, and I will fill it. But my people would not listen to me. Israel would not submit to me. So I gave them over to their stubborn hearts to follow their own devices. If my people would but listen to me, if Israel would follow my ways, how quickly will I subdue their enemies and turn my hand against their foes. Those who hate the Lord would cringe before him, and their punishment would last forever. But you would be fed with the finest of wheat, with honey from the rock. I would satisfy you. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So what's going on? It's a big psalm. It's a big psalm that gets right to the heart of what it is to really know God. I say it's a big psalm because actually in the Bible, making loud noises for God is one of the ways to acknowledge him. Did you hear that at the beginning? Shout with all your strength, play the tambourine, do a ram's horn. That's a bit like zuzuvela, whatever those things are, the big trumpets that you sound. Not very tuneful, but very loud. Make a noise about God. That's what the first 5 verses of the psalm say. I don't know. That's pretty hard to do, isn't it? Mostly we get a bit embarrassed about our faith in God. But to make a loud noise that nobody can avoid, why would you do that? Well, the psalm says you should be doing it out of joy. That's the first thing. Break out the music, sound the horn, have a festival, have a feast at new moon and at full moon. Make every opportunity to party. And there's something about knowing God that should be a bit more exuberant than sometimes we often show. This is something worth celebrating as loud as we can. But not only is it as our joy, it's also our obligation. Verses 4 and 5. This is a decree. It's an ordinance from God. I.e., it's something that God says, look, I want you to do this. I'm asking you to do this. I'm commanding you to do this. Why? Well, you need it and my name needs to be known. We don't often think about faith being loud and in your face. It's not very English, is it? But actually, there are reasons. There are reasons why making the loudest noise you can is the right thing to do. What are those reasons? Well, that's what David celebrates in the next bit of the psalm. Why make this sort of noise? Verses 6 to 10. Why? Because we remember our salvation. That's why this is big news, big noise, because God has saved us. Verses 6 and 7. What did God do? He set them free. Set them free from Egypt. He says, I removed the burden from your shoulders. Your hand was set free from the basket. That's where they used to make the stuff in Egypt when they were slaves. I answered you out of a thundercloud, tested you at the waters of Meribah. During the Exodus, God rescued them time and time again. He provided for them time and time again. God set them free by what he did, the miracles he did. But more than that, God spoke truth to them. That's why else to make a noise. Not only did God rescue them, he revealed himself to them as well. And what did God say, verses 8 to 10? Hear my people, I warn you, don't have any foreign gods. I am the Lord your God. I am, that most special, precious name of God in the Old Testament. The God who is I am, the living, the being one, the one who rules all. So it's not just what God did, it's what God has said, revealing truth, and even more glorious, what God promises at the end. Open wide your mouth and I will fill it. He's saying, I will be your satisfaction. That's why to sing about this, your life will only find its truest satisfaction when it's in me. You know, all the time people are searching for things to satisfy them, you know, drugs and sex and alcohol and all sorts of things. The world says, if you go after this, you'll feel satisfied. But none of them do it. But the love of God found in Jesus does it. That's the difference. Your satisfaction, all that you want and need will be found in him. Open your mouth wide. Why? Tell people about this wonderful thing that God has done for you. And why does it matter? Well, David says that too. In verse 11 to 16. He says, if you don't do that, you're missing out. If you're not the sort of person who's exuberant in telling people about God and celebrating, remembering your salvation, you're going to miss out. Because, he says, if my people wouldn't listen to me, they wouldn't submit to me, so I gave them over to their stubborn hearts to follow their own devices. You see, what happens if we don't make God the centre of our life is he gives us up to the uselessness of the other stuff. Of course we won't find satisfaction if we don't find it in him. But what God says is you reap what you sow. You know, if you give no time for God, you won't find him. You won't find the blessings of knowing him. You won't find the peace and the joy and the purpose that knowing him brings. So, firstly, you'll reap what you sow, and then you'll miss out on a blessing. If my people would but listen and follow my ways, I'd subdue their enemies, he says, and turn them away. They'd cringe in fear. You would know victory, you would know the blessing of God if you celebrate his salvation, if you tell people about what he's done. You know what, in Christian worship particularly, we do it all the time. Sometimes we don't celebrate as loudly as we do, but even when we break bread together at the Lord's table, it's about declaring the Lord's death, celebrating his salvation, making a noise about it as loud as we can. Now, I know it's not very English, but I do know that it's a great place for our heart to be, to have reasons to say thank you, reasons to rejoice, to make a loud noise for God, remembering his salvation, because that's the way of his blessing. And those who celebrate with joy will find the fruit of his grace and peace in their lives. So what a great psalm. Have a party, but make the party about what God has done, and make sure that you don't miss out on all that God promises will be a blessing. Tell you what, why don't I pray, and we'll just round that off, and you can think a bit further about that psalm. So let me pray. God our Father, thank you for reminding us that this gift you've given us is worth celebrating beyond everything else. It's worth making a loud noise about. Give us hearts that realise how blessed we are to be saved by you, that realise that the eternity you've promised is worth giving our lives to. Help us to find the blessing that you promise. Help us to find the peace that you have given us as your purpose. And help us to celebrate and to share the good news that has saved us. And we ask it all for Jesus' sake. Amen. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.